ሆፕ በጥያቄ መሰረት እንደሚቀርብልዎት አንዳንድ ነገሮች ተስፋ እናደርጋለን። የሚቀጥለውን ፕሬዘንቴሽን ዶክተር ጥሩሰው አሰፋ ከኢትዮጵያ ሆነው ያቀርቡልናል። ዶክተር ጥሩሰው ዩኒቨርሲቲ ኦፍ ሳውዘርን ፍሎሪዳ ስኩል ኦፍ ግሎባል ሰስቴናቢሊቲ ውስጥ ነው የሚሰሩት። ፕላኒንግ ኤንድ ዲሲዥን ሰፖርት ሊድ ታምፓ ቤይ ዋተር ናቸው። ዶክተር ጥሩሰው the floor is yours, please.
Yeah, I think I need to share. So, yeah, while you are doing this, I do have a courtesy appointment with University of South Florida, but my main job is with Tampa Bay Water, which is a water supply state government, basically. So I just want to make sure.
Yeah, we can see it now.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me. Time starts now. Okay. So my title was actually, there was no any downstream impact from the GERD, but things has changed since I have that topics and actually changed it to one that says how Egypt is trying to deny Ethiopian water share, water use right. And some of those I will talk. So what I'm going to speak is in between a little bit of with the science boundary and then as well as translation to what you heard. So a little bit of not too technical, but I will get into some of those issues as well. So you heard at the beginning from Ambassador, this was the presidential statement actually. And I wouldn't go to in detail, but I will just say that, let me just minimize it. Yes, I'll just say, I highlight there, what it says is that they wanted to have a binding agreement for filling and operation. So this is key. That's why I put a red line. So I will come back. What does it mean actually? So the sticky point, why they didn't agree and why that they put that red line is that how do you agree in terms of the filling and operations? And within that is who should be responsible about drought? At some point drought will come, who is responsible? I will come back. I will give example in the US later on, but that's one of the contentious issues. And then also your chance of filling the reservoir, what happened in the future with the climate change, future water use. You actually heard with Dr. Edo some irrigation expansion and water supply as well. Upstream GERD is going to come. So how do you account on that? Data sharing is another one, and there are some right up here, a simple way of putting this issue in the We.ASCE page as well. So we summed it up. This is actually a result of I had a webinar and I invited 4 international experts on different areas. And the result of that was basically an article that I wrote that says the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is water sharing. Nobody wants to talk about that, but within that binding operation is actually water sharing. Without knowing your water share, how can you release a certain amount of water forever? That's what it means, binding means. So you have to release that amount. So if you don't know your share, how are you going to do that? And GERD is not actually a good way to share. It's a single project on a single basin, and you don't use that water share. You have to look at the Nile basin. Earlier, we saw some of the studies, and then the last time as well. That's the way to share the water. Now, one thing I want to caution as well, there are many studies. And in fact, recently I have seen many studies, even in the Nature. They have very catchy names: cooperation, collaborative management. So these scientific studies is actually kind of misleading because to me, this is my opinion, some of them are solving the wrong problem. So when your premise is different and you set up, typically they are set up using the 90-59 allocation of water. And then people don't go back to the premise. So they are solving that. Recently, I saw a study in Nature that says collaboratively managing the GERD, and they have some studies. I was like, well, whose dam are you collaboratively managing? I mean, that's a big issue. Another example, there are a few, so I will not go in details, most of them. There was one that took my attention as well, and this was a Nature article on energy. The person who wrote this actually shared with me and with the others through Twitters, and I read it. So when I read this, what I found is By the way, this study was press released in 6 languages, including Amharic. So in 6 languages, they put a press out after this study. But when I look inside, what I found is this is a great study on how you combine different type of energy production, including hydropower, but their premise is the issue. This is what the problem I have. They are solving the wrong question using sophisticated mathematics. And I talked to him, and I actually had back and forth with the author. What they did is in a big picture. So if I summarize this paper, what it says is, given Egypt having what it wants, basically their 1959 agreement, how can Ethiopia and Sudan trade power so that they will fulfill what Egypt wants? Plain English, that's what it is. In fact, I went and the guy came back to me, and I highlight in yellow because he started to argue with me. You can see on the first one, all the assumption. What's interesting is actually they use all these conditions from the Lake Nasser, the data that came straight from Egyptian, and I highlight that too. So what I want to highlight here is there are many studies like this. When you look at it on the surface, they look like, hey, this is great. You can do it. But the way to do it is actually what Dr. Edo said. You should look at it from the entire system as a food, water, and energy, not just energy, and then trying to maintain through a boundary condition for Egypt. So that's not the way to do it, actually. Now, stepping back, why I want to bring from Colorado Basin, and this goes back to water sharing as well. The reason I bring is I follow this closely, and I'm one of the 12 water supplies in the US. So big picture, they have 2 lakes here. The one you see on the bottom is Lake Mead. Is this the one, a key reservoir, and this is used not only for water sharing, but for drought sharing. That's exactly the reason that I brought this as an example. And there is something going on right now. It's very relevant. So depending on Lake Mead, they will share the drought as well. So after so many years in 2019, they actually agreed on how to share drought. Like I said, drought will come at some point. It's 10 years, 15 years going to come, but you need to know how you are going to share as well. So they have this in place, and they work over a decade to get here. And that drought sharing says, depending on the Lake Mead water levels, in this case, you can see 1075, Arizona will have a reduction, Nevada will have a reduction, Mexico will have a reduction as well for the first, and it will continue. Well, fast forward, last April, the Colorado River hits that mark, which is a 1075, and at that time, it was clear that their pre-allocated share was going to be reduced. So in terms of the process, starting next year, January 1st, 2022, you will see there is a reduction in their share. That's how you do it. So you share the water and you share the drought. Now, in terms of Egypt, big picture, what they don't want to do is they don't want to share the drought as well. So in fact, the way they define their drought is, I have never seen something like this. I teach in graduate school as well on flood and drought. The way they define even a drought is a median at 50 percentile. You can see here, a median. So what it means is that anything below the median is drought. Now, in a plain English, what does it mean is that the statistics means that every other year, according to this definition, Egypt is in drought. When is the last time Egypt is in drought? Was it drought last year? No. The year before? No. The year before? No. But this is the definition they used for GERD negotiation. Interestingly, even before the first filling, there were already some news that they are being impacted, and this picture from AP is a good example that that shows that they're
okay with that?
yeah.
Okay.
Mute, please.
Thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay. And it was very interesting that to me that GERD is not even just the first feeling. And they were showing a picture. This is from AP, that some of the farmers, their land is high and dry, as you see. But if you dig a little bit, you can actually find this written by Egyptians. What happened to these poor farmers were internal allocation within Egypt, and they gave it to multinational big companies, and they allocate their water from the others. That's the issue. And this one shows how Egypt is actually feeding the Gulf. It's a very interesting article you should read. Now, if you dig deep, they don't want you to see this. Do you know there are, a lot of golf course? Interestingly, they actually reduce rice production. So if you look at to show from the journal, from media perspective, hey, we're trying to save water and we are reducing rice, but they created golf, which takes twice water than rice. Very interesting. And you can read there as well. But when they negotiate with us, they show this. Whatever Ethiopia does is going to dry up the whole Sudan and Egypt as well. So this article written by Egyptian as well says, I like the title. He said, GERD, the tree hiding the forest. So they are blaming basically for everything. In fact, one of their negotiators, he said, we call it a circuit breaker. We are trying to stop all the upstream studies. They call it, this is the negotiators saying, we call it a circuit breakers. Well, my translation for that is, don't ask our water use, don't ask whether it's equitable or water sharing. The objective is really to stop the upstreams. And if you see some of their argument now is that, wow, Ethiopia is getting a lot of water they don't need. A lot of rain. Well, the science tells us that most of the rain actually goes right back through evapotranspiration. Some of our studies in Florida as well and other places, tremendous amount. This I just want to bring your attention here is that as much as 90% of the rain is actually goes back to satisfy the environment. And that comes during a dry year. So basically, this idea that Ethiopia has a lot of rain and should forfeit almost 70% of its surface flow is just, well, to say it mildly, it's unscientific. The claim is Ethiopia has 980 billion cubic rain, but we have in total 124 BCM of flow. And if you do a simple math, it's 12%. So it's 12% of the rain that end up being surface water. I'm not even putting the groundwater. And then if you see from the groundwater, actually it gets from the Ethiopia, goes to Sudan, even neglecting that. So you can't even look at it. Then they come up with virtual water. You have a lot of cattle you are using. All this is basically to stop you. One thing I want to bring to people's attention, why are they trying to stop us? And nobody gives you, in fact, how much water is at highest one. It's just, you have to do what we call inverse modeling. So it's like if you have a bank account, you check how much is in, how much is out, you figure it out. This is a very interesting study. And what they found out is flow at ASSE is actually 97, at least. This is a published paper, 97. How they did, like I just said, it's like a bank account. They account for all in and out of that system, and they came up 97. Nobody talks about that. So rather than trying to figure out how much is, and I argue that we don't know how much water is in the whole Nile basin, by the way, especially the groundwater surface water interaction, not very well represented. So that's an issue as well. Big picture, Ed already showed you some of the example, direct benefit, we know them. Just I will want to bring you in terms of the climate change impact. This is a study by Egyptian and Sudanese actually. You can see with GERD, this is where the total storage is. So where I highlight, you can see the blue is just a future without, if the future doesn't change, we need that much of a storage in Ethiopia, it says. If the projection of climate change is going to hold, especially with the variability, 1 year high rain, one other year less rain, we need even more, not just GERD. You probably need 1.5 to 2 times GERD, because that's where the cooler temperature is. That's where the storage should come to. That's their study as well. And this is another study, how much they get, 1 to 2 billion GDP increase, including the rural. You can see here, I put a reference here, that's their study as well. But it's clear. In fact, you can see the Tirusew experience without any big agreement. You can look at back. This is a video from the Sudanese hydraulic research. Interesting. This farmer says, I used to use only one time per year. Now I can fish throughout the year. So if you want to see an example without even not formal agreement, this is a great example as well. Now, I will stop here because we are going to field the next year. And there was a question that comes. Everybody knows that this third feeling is not going to impact at all. Why? In fact, as of this week, you can see the highest in 30 years. The last time they were this high, Swan Dam, Lake Nasser, in 2020s. So practically there is nothing that says third filling and subsequent filling of the gut will be impacted. Another good thing, just released some of the climate outlook for the next year is what we call a La Nina. And this forecast, I should say, is based on how the ocean circulates and how the ocean warms, and it impacts the rainfall throughout the world. The ocean doesn't warm and cold in 1 month. It takes a year to warm up, and then it takes another year to just cool down. Because of this, they are able to see what could happen next year. So next year, as we see today, what we are seeing is that not only they are at the highest in 30 years, but also the outlook is great. So I'm going to conclude on that. The next one is that going forward, I believe there's enough water in the Nile Basin, but we do need both supply and demand management. Now, I talked about the supply side, and I work in demand forecast, demand management. One of the things we see is that there is a lot of loss as well in Egypt too. We heard in the first presentation some of those losses. Even if they conserve 20%, 30% of that, that's huge. So you do need to look at the both demand and supply. And the supply, again, I argue this is very important that we need to know even what is the total amount. I will also say that, in fact, in the future, if we were going to have a water share, there is no way we can come up now. We can figure out how much it is. There are different approach that we heard today as well, one of them. But I argue that we need to set the baseline. We need to know how much water it is. That could probably take 5 to 10 years to just understand the baseline. Why? We work in Florida in where there is a lot of groundwater to surface water interaction. And according to our model, typically it takes you 2 years to see how the groundwater and surface water is connected. If I'm in Sudan, if I put huge pumps, we have like 4 or 5 million gallons per day pumps, you can suck that water from the river. We don't know. So if you are just simply measuring the stream flow, you're not going to get anywhere. So for that, first we need to know what is in the Nile Basin, and then also we have to understand the baseline. Who is using what and how much? That's the key. Once you have the agreement, then with that in place, we probably be able to build confidence and then come up to the future. Hydrologic conditions are great, like I said, for the next year. In fact, for the next several years. So I didn't say much, but if you see the Nile hydrology, it's what we call a regime type of hydrology. That means that for the number of years, there's these big cycles. You may have a great hydrology condition for the 10 years, and then you may be relatively dry or less than average another 10 years. So we are on that weight, very good hydrology. So we don't really see from those cycles. Again, we are not guided, but I think based on the statistics and the science, we are on that regime condition that it should not be a problem at all to fill the GERD. So yeah, that's all. This is my last. Yes. So once filled, you build this confidence, and then you can work. This is very important. It's not how to share, and then also how to share the drought. The drought will come. It's a matter of time. But that we have to be ready. So if everybody knows their shares and so on, they won't be a big problem. So the biggest problem on the last 10 years, why they didn't agree, is because on the surface, the Egyptians, they don't want to talk about water sharing. But their proposal says that if you bind the operation, it is implicated to water sharing, And if you follow their numbers, that's basically zero for us. If we follow them, we wouldn't even fill the dam, I assure you, because statistically speaking, it says you have to have 70 BCM per year to get unlimited water. And the chance of having 70 BCM per year, 0.00001 or something like that. So basically you are not gonna fill. So this is very important. And I stopped, I think this is the last one.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tirusew. Really appreciate. Okay. እናመሰግናለን ሁላችሁንም የሚቀጥለውን ነገር እንዲያስተባብሩልን ለአቶ ሳምሶን ተፈራ ለማስተር ኦፍ ሴሬሞኒ ወደ ጥያቄና መልሱ እንዲወስዱልን።
በጣም አመሰግናለሁኝ ዶክተር ጌታቸው። አሁን ከፓነሊስቶች ቅድሚያ ሰጣለሁኝ። ጥያቄ እጅ ያወጣችሁ ፓነሊስቶች ያየሁኝ ነበረ።
ሰዎች
ዶክተር አባተ ወልደ ኪሮስ ለእርሱ ቅድሚያ ሰጣለሁ።
እሺ በጣም አመሰግናለሁ አቶ ሳምሶን። በነገራችን ላይ ስሜ አባተ ወልደ ኪሮስ ነው እና ኪሮስም ይስማማኛል።
ታረማለሁኝ አንዷን ኬሚስ አድርጌ ነው ስሬን አላረከው ኪሮስ።
በነገራችን ላይ እኔ የሆነ ሼር እንዳድርግ ተጋብዤ ነበር እና በዚሁ አጠቃልለዋለሁ ምናገር እዛ በመልክቱ ከጀርባዬ ባለው እንደምታዩት ፍሬንድስ የሚባል ፎረም አቋቁመን ኦክቶበር ፈርስት ሰንዴይ ላይ የ19ኛውን ስብሰባ አድርገን ነበር። ዋና መሰረቱ የፍሬንድስ ፎረም ፎር ሪሰርች ኢኒሺየቲቭ ኤክስቼንጅ ኦፍ ኖሌጅ ኤንድ ዴቨሎፕመንት ሰፖርት የሚለው የመጣው ቅድም አምባሳደር ታየም እንዳሉት ሌሎችም እንዳነሱት በተለይ በገርድ ላይ የናይል አጠቃቀም ላይ በምንመለከትበት ጊዜ ፖለቲክሱ ሲነዳው ሳይ በጣም አዘንኩኝ። ቤኔፊቱ ለኢትዮጵያ ብቻ ሳይሆን በተለይ ደግሞ ለሱዳን እንደሚጠቅም ለኢጅፕት እንደሚጠቅም ጥሩሰው ዶክተር ጥሩሰው ኤዶም ሁሉም ብዙ በዚህ ነገር ላይ ኤክስፐርት የሆኑ ሰዎች የኢጂፕሽንስ ጨምሮ ሱዳኖችን የሚናገሩት ነገር ነውና ለምንድነው እሱ ፖለቲክሱ መረን ለቆ የሚመራው? አትሊስት ከህዝቡ ጋራ ተገናኝተን ከሱዳን ከኢጅፕትም ከሌሎችም ተፋሳሽ አገሮች የሆኑት ጋራ አንወያይም የሚለው ሐሳብ መጥቶልኝ I reached out to a Sudanese professional. He is in agricultural economics. I can shift to English now when I speak. Maybe some of my friends in this forum might be attending this symposium. So we say, we have to change the narrative here. We have to change the mechanism of the discussion or the agenda that is set around the GERD project. So with all honesty, we say that, we have to stick to the science, we have to stick to the data and discuss freely in a forum. And we established that. I contacted Dr. Aklog also, and we formed that forum sometimes back, long time back. It's over a year now. And we are successful in bringing people from Egypt, professionals. Our last meeting, the presenter was from Egypt and from Uganda. From Uganda, in fact, not only from the technical side, but from the media side. We had a person from there also. And we brought the Nile project, which is a musical, arts, and cultural organization, which is doing a great job, in my opinion. And we started sharing our opinions, and some of you here were presenters, including Dr. Getachew, Dr. Tirusew, Dr. Sammo from Ethiopia side, and Dr. Alam Gabriel, I think he's here as well. And we brought also from Sudan, Mr. Mohammed Bashir, well-known guys in the discussion around the GERD. And our 20th will be in first month of every month, so it will be falling on November 7th. So I would like to use this opportunity to invite you to attend. And oh, how can I forget, Miss Magdalawit Masai? She is the driving force of our forum, actually. I'm just, the face, and I should have allowed her to speak on. Yeah. And
Dr. Edo too.
Yes, I mentioned Edo. I mentioned, Edo and others also. If I didn't mention, any person, please correct me. So, and when Ambassador Taye spoke, and when also Ambassador Dina Mufti spoke, I got the confirmation, because from Ambassador Dina Mufti, he said that public diplomacy, everybody, each and everyone here, and those who are listening to us through Facebook, YouTube, I think there are many there, we are ambassadors. So we have to reach the people of Sudan. We have to reach the people of Egypt. We have to reach the people in the East African side, and Uganda, Kenya, Rwanda, all other places also, even beyond that. That's what you see there, African map there. My friend, he is a graphic artist. He made that logo for us. And I really appreciate that the confirmation that came from the seasoned politicians is agreeing with us. How do we reach the people of Sudan? Through their profession, honest professionals. How do we reach the Egyptian people? Through their professionals. And I think we are succeeding in that. And I ask you to help in this matter. And in the next meeting, we are trying to invite a person who is well known all over the world regarding the use of the Nile water. Hopefully he will have the time, and we'll have him. And in December, we are going to invite back the Nile project people, because December is a lighter time, and some holidays are coming.
Dr. Rabate, wrap up ያርጉልን within a minute.
By the way, I'm using my time regarding, the presentation. I don't want the presentation time that the organizers gave me. So what I will conclude actually, and the Ambassador Taye said that 4 principles he is emphasizing, Ethiopia is emphasizing. That's cooperation, the equitable and reasonable use, no significant harm, and also to continue with the dialogue. So our forum is promoting this public diplomacy. And if you have any question,